It's 6000 BC. You've just won a fight. 4 people from the next valley are kneeling in the dirt in front of you. And for 2 million years, there have only ever been 2 things to do with them. Let them go, or don't. Today, somebody does a third thing. Keep them. Not for ransom, not until somebody comes to trade. Keep them, and keep them, and keep them. It sounds like the obvious move. For almost the entire history of our species, it was a spectacularly bad business decision. So why did humans start owning each other? And here's the thing. Whatever changed, it changed more than once. On 5 continents, among people who had never met, never traded, and had no idea the others existed. Like a tool the world kept handing back to us. Which is a much worse question than the one we started with. Let's find out. Start with the thing nobody tells you about slavery. It is expensive. A captive is not free labor. A captive has to eat every day, whether or not they work. Has to be watched every night by somebody who would otherwise be asleep, and wants, more than anything on earth, to leave. For about 2 million years, that math never worked. You can't feed a prisoner from a food supply that runs out on Thursday. You can't guard one while walking 20 kilometers to the next camp. And you can't profit from one when the work you do, tracking and foraging and napping stone, takes a lifetime to learn and can't be supervised. So there was no third option, not because our ancestors were gentler than us, because the arithmetic said no. Then the arithmetic changed. In 1970, an economist at MIT called Evsey Domar published a short paper about something that had been bothering him. Why did serfdom appear in Russia at exactly the moment Russia had more empty land than it knew what to do with? His answer is still one of the best ideas anyone has had about bondage. Free land, free workers, a landowning class that doesn't work. You can have any 2, never all 3. If there's empty land in every direction, nobody will farm your field for wages. Why would they? They'd go and clear their own. So if you want a workforce and you can't hire one, there is exactly one option left. It's 3200 BC in a city called Uruk in southern Iraq, and somebody is pressing a cut reed into a tablet of wet clay. This is the beginning of writing. Not poetry, not prayer, not law. Roughly 9 out of 10 of the earliest tablets ever recovered are accounting. Barley, oil, livestock, and people. And next to the people, the scribe presses 2 signs. The first one means person. The second one means mountain. Because in the world's oldest written language, the word for slave isn't about ownership at all. It's about geography. Male of the foreign land, female of the foreign land. In the earliest records we have, enslaved people aren't described by what's being done to them. They're described by where they came from. 1500 years later, Hammurabi of Babylon has 282 laws cut into a pillar of black stone. Dozens of them are about slaves. One of them fixes the reward for returning a runaway at 2 shekels of silver. Let that sink in. Not an argument, not a justification, a price in a legal code, like a parking fine. By 1754 BC, this isn't an innovation. It's paperwork. Everything I just told you comes from writing, and writing only goes back about 5,000 years. The thing we're trying to date is older than that. And here's the problem. Slavery leaves almost no trace. A captive and a free farmer eat similar food, do similar work, and leave behind a similar skeleton. There's no object that says slave on it, no pot, no tool, no building. We're trying to date an invention that is, archaeologically, close to invisible, but not completely. In 1983, a man digging in his garden near the German village of Talheim found a pit with 34 people in it. Men, women, and children, buried together around 5000 BC, all from Europe's earliest farming culture. Similar pits have turned up since, at Schöneck-Kilienstätten in Germany, and at Aspern-Schletz in Austria. And across those sites, there's the same strange gap in the dead. The young adult women are missing. They weren't in the pit, which means, almost certainly, that they went somewhere. That isn't slavery yet, not property, not the thing Hammurabi put a price on. It's the raw material. Captive taking, the habit slavery eventually gets built on top of. So what flipped the arithmetic? Three things, and they had to arrive together. The first is storage, not farming. Storage. A grain pit, a salt store, a rack of dried fish. The moment you have food that outlasts the week, you can feed somebody who isn't paying for themselves. The second is fixity. You stopped moving. A wall, a village, a valley with one way out. You cannot guard a person in open country, but you can guard 40 of them in a compound with one gate. The third is Domar's condition. Land you could farm and nowhere near enough hands to farm it. Storage, fixity, a shortage of people. Wherever those three lined up, somebody eventually ran the numbers, and the numbers came out yes. Storage, walls, fields. That's agriculture with extra steps. And the proof is on a river in Alaska. The peoples of the Pacific Northwest coast, the Tlingit and the Haida and the Chinook, never farmed. They didn't need to. The salmon runs handed them a surplus reliable enough to dry, store, and live on year-round in permanent cedar houses, with nobles, commoners, and inherited rank. They also held slaves. Kenneth Ames, an archaeologist at Portland State who has spent decades on that coast, has argued that in some communities, enslaved people may have been somewhere between a tenth and a quarter of the population. No wheat, no plow, no kings. Slavery, anyway. It was never about farming. It was about the three switches, and once you can see them, you see them everywhere. Shang China, the Aztec Tlacotin, the Inca Yanacuna, Norse thralls, Maori Tarakareka, kingdoms across West Africa, Rome, where by some estimates, 1 person in 5 in Italy was owned by another. Different continents, different centuries, most of them with no contact at all. The same answer. Worked out independently, again and again and again. Here's where it gets genuinely uncomfortable. For most of human history, slavery was appalling, and it was also, and this is a hard sentence to say out loud, porous. Rome freed people often enough that freedmen became their own social class. An Aztec Tlacotin could own property, marry who they liked, and buy their way out. In some systems, the status died with the person who carried it. Then, from the 16th century, 2 plants changed the shape of it: sugar and cotton, crops that reward one input above all others. Unlimited unskilled labor applied to unlimited land. Domar's condition, industrialized. And here's where we have to be careful, because the obvious claim is wrong. Heritable bondage wasn't new. Rome passed the status down through the mother. Mesopotamia had it. Korea's Nobi system ran on it for centuries. What was new was the scale and the exits. Earlier systems leaked. People bought out, married out, were freed out, outlived it. A system running on sugar and cotton needed a status that couldn't leak, so it tied the status to ancestry, made ancestry visible, and shut the door behind it. Not the slavery. The slavery was ancient. The closure was new. That's not a small edit. That's a different machine. And the machine didn't switch off. In 2021, the International Labor Organization, Walk Free, and the IOM surveyed 68 countries and put a number on it. On any given day that year, about 49.6 million people were living in modern slavery. 27.6 million of them in forced labor. That's 1 in every 150 people alive. More than half of that forced labor sits in wealthy and upper middle income countries, not somewhere else, not the past, because the 3 switches never went away. Storage, fixity, and a shortage of people willing to do a job at the price on offer. So why did humans start owning each other? We don't know exactly. We can't. There's no first slave with a grave marker, no tablet recording the decision, no layer in the soil where it starts. Somewhere in a window, 5,000 years wide, in a place nobody has dug, one person looked at another and saw a tool. And then it happened again, somewhere else, for the same reasons. What we do know is this: it was never a failure of intelligence. It was the opposite. It took planning, accounting, law, walls, and a sophisticated understanding of what a human being can be made to produce. Every society that built it was clever. That's the horror of it. Not that they were savages, that they were competent. That's not a stain you can point at the past and walk away from. That's a set of conditions. You woke up this morning, and every hour of the day belonged to you. You'll spend most of it badly, scrolling probably. It took our species about 2 million years to make that normal. It has been normal for a fraction of that. Look at the day in front of you. It's yours. If this video changed the way you think about slavery, leave a like. It helps more people find stories like this. And I'm curious what you think. Which of the 3 switches do you think mattered most? Storage, fixity, or the shortage of labor? If you want to keep pulling apart the strange systems that shaped human history, subscribe to Black Knot. Because sometimes the darkest parts of history don't begin with monsters. They begin with a calculation. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.